Hello and welcome. I'm Rashawn Gidwani and you're watching the World Report on NewsX World. Let's take a look at some of the headlines for this hour. For the first time, the IDF has ordered all residents to flee Beirut's southern suburbs as airstrikes intensify. This marks a massive escalation in the Lebanon front, with the military preparing for a full clearance operation. President Trump has replaced Kristi Noem with Senator Mark Wayne Mullen as Secretary of Homeland Security. Noem will transition to a new role as Special Envoy for the Shield of the Americas Security Initiative. The U.S. Treasury has granted India a 30-day emergency window to purchase stranded Russian oil cargoes. This temporary move aims to stabilize global energy markets as Middle East supplies remain largely paralyzed. Over 200 crew members were rescued from the Iran's Bushehr after it became stranded near Sri Lankan waters. This follows the high-profile sinking of another Iranian frigate by a U.S. submarine earlier this week. Beijing has set its GDP target at 4.5% to 5.0%, its lowest in years. During the National People's Congress, leaders cited the total collapse of energy supply chains as a primary risk to the domestic economy. President Trump has declared he must be personally involved in selecting Iran's next supreme leader to ensure a settlement is reached. He rejected the late Ayatollah Khamenei's son, Mojtaba, as a lightweight, comparing the situation to his recent intervention in Venezuela. The escalating conflict has paralyzed the Strait of Hormuz, a critical artery for one-third of the global fertilizer trade, just as the spring planting season begins. With major production hubs in Qatar and the UAE facing drone strikes and soaring insurance costs, prices for urea have jumped by over $80 per ton, threatening a massive spike in global food inflation. Beijing has launched urgent high-level talks with Tehran to secure safe passage for tankers carrying crude oil and Qatari liquefied natural gas through the blocked waterway. As China relies on the strait for 45% of its oil, reports indicate Iran may allow only Chinese-flagged vessels to transit while maintaining a total blockade against Western-aligned nations. And here are the top stories for the hour. The U.S. House of Representatives have rejected a bid to halt U.S. President Trump's war efforts in Iran, which had earlier proposed that Trump must require congressional authorization before continuing any hostilities. Lawmakers voted 219 to 212 against the measure, keeping President Trump's military campaign in place. Moreover, in a related development, at a House Armed Services Committee hearing, U.S. Undersecretary of Defense Elbridge Colby faced intense scrutiny from lawmakers on both sides of the aisle about the administration's strategy in Iraq. Members questioned the defined objectives, progress, and transparency of what is known as Operation Epic Fury, and asked whether clear plans exist to prevent Iran from rebuilding its military capabilities. Let's listen into their discussions.
When President Trump was running for office, he said over and over and over again, I'm not going to do wars. In fact, he very specifically said, if I'm president, we will not go to war with Iran. And here we are. So I'm genuinely curious, what changed? What changed from when he was a candidate to when he was in office that has led us to the level of conflict that we are now experiencing?
I can give you the perspective from the Department of War, which represents the direction that the President has given for the military campaign, which is specifically focused on degrading and destroying the power projection, particularly the conventional power projection capabilities of the Islamic Republic of Iran, and thus especially missile one-way attack drones capabilities and their production, as well as the naval forces of the
Representatives also debated analogies used by Undersecretary of Defense Colby to explain the administration's foreign policy approach, with some lawmakers reluctant to accept comparisons between Iran and other global situations. Let's once again listen into their comments.
Iran to Venezuela is like, I don't know, comparing Kentucky to Venezuela. It's equally valid.
I don't think it's a perfect analogy, sir, but I think I'm just making a point about in terms of the flexibility of the political objective. And of course, the president has said it's a fact, it's a historic opportunity for the Iranian people to rise up and overthrow this noxious government.
The hearing also saw broader concerns from Congress about the Trump administration's transparency and priorities, with some lawmakers accusing the executive branch of underestimating congressional oversight role in decisions that could draw the U.S. into protracted conflict. Let's listen into what Democratic Representative John Garamendi has said with this in mind.
It hasn't been clear to you yet. We're concerned that the president and his staff and minions are disrespecting the Congress of the United States, this committee, and simply going to do whatever a dictator wants to do.
And now we're being joined by Daniela Bloom, a political commentator from Los Angeles, California. Ma'am, what do you believe the plans of the Trump administration are in Iran exactly? We know that they are trying to essentially rule out any nuclear capabilities, but have there been any documents that have essentially laid out this plan? Do you have any intel on this, please?
Well, first of all, I'd like to start by saying to call out the hypocrisy of these people who report on the imbalance of when Obama did it in 2011 and did not get congressional support for Libya, there was no complaints there. And in fact, Nancy Pelosi approved it. But now when Trump is trying to do the same thing, again, he is not looking at this as a long-term war. It might be a longer-term operation, but Trump and his administration are very strategic. They like to win. So they are not going to enter into something this risky without a clear plan of action. The fact that Israel has already said today that 80% of the airspace has been cleared above Iran, making it much easier to go into specific strikes. And you have a lot of other countries who were former adversaries coming together, united against this power. It's going to be a game changer for the Middle East and Europe, and the world will be better for it.
Please stay with us, ma'am. We'll be right back with you. U.S. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth has made strong remarks, warning Iran that it was making a serious miscalculation if it believed the United States could not sustain the current war. Hegseth has said that Washington has just begun its military campaign and that Iran was undervaluing U.S. resolve. Hegseth, let's hear now from Secretary Hegseth himself.
To our mission objectives only increases as our advantages continue to increase. We've got no shortage of munitions. Our stockpiles of defensive and offensive weapons allow us to sustain this campaign as long as we need to. Again, our munition status only increases as our advantage increases. Our capabilities, we have only just begun to fight, and fight decisively. Having a chance to hear from Admiral Cooper. If you think you've seen something, just wait. The amount of combat power that's still flowing, that's still coming, that we'll be able to project over Iran is a multiples of what it currently is right now when you add up our capabilities and those of the Israeli Defense Forces.
Bloom, political commentator, joining us live from Los Angeles, California. Ma'am, in your opinion, with these comments in mind, do you believe that Trump's administration will entirely obliterate all of Iran to the point where the images we're seeing on the screen right now of total obliteration will be the case for the entire country? And then what? Please.
I do believe that the Middle East works on peace through strength, and Hegseth and Trump were absolutely flexing their muscles. Will they have to use them? Maybe, maybe not. But their goal is not total destruction. They are practical. It's a practical administration. Of course, they are thrilled that the Iranian people will now have the freedom that they've been longing for decades. But you don't want to reveal your cards to your enemies because they are still watching. The art of the deal is an element of surprise. And that's exactly what the Trump administration is doing with the strategy.
And I'd like to ask you another question. In your experience, I'm pretty sure you might have heard the news by now that Trump essentially wants to control who the next supreme leader is. What are your thoughts on that? And what power does he have to essentially go into Iran and essentially reorganize the entire governmental structure that is there? Please.
Well, I actually heard a different quote directly from him. He wants the people to have the ruler that is in their best interest. Right now, that's very hard to do. We saw what happened with Iraq. Just because you take out the supreme leader does not necessarily mean a Democrat leader just takes over. So Trump is aware of that. And you do have to make sure that there are elections that are safe and fair where the people are represented. As much as the media wants to make him a tyrant, he really does want to empower the people of Iran. I mean, you look at his history with the Abraham Accords, things that countries that we never thought possible have joined America, Israel, the UAE, Bahrain, Morocco, and I think we're also very close to including Saudi Arabia. So anything is possible, and we stand with the people of Iran, and so does Trump.
Please stay with us, ma'am. We'll be right back with you. Israel's military chief, Lieutenant General Eyal Zamir, announced that the U.S.-Israeli campaign against Iran is entering its next phase. Operations will focus on further dismantling Iran's military capabilities. Zamir stated that more surprises lie ahead, but would not reveal specifics. He also reported significant progress, revealing that over 60% of Iran's ballistic missile launchers and 80% of its air defense systems have been destroyed in the ongoing campaign. Following these developments, Israel reports achieving near total air superiority over Iranian airspace. Let's listen to what the IDF Chief of the General Staff, Lieutenant General Eyal Zamir, had to say.
תעשה חיל האוויר ביצוע עד כה 2,500 תקיפות והטילו יותר מ-6,000 חימושים. בתוך 24 שעות טייסינו סללו את הדרך לטהרן. השמדנו כ-80% ממערכות ההגנה האווירית. השגנו עליונות אווירית כמעט מוחלטת בשמי איראן. הודות לכך והודות למודיעין האיכותי, אנחנו תוקפים את הטילים הבליסטיים המהווים איום ישיר על אזרחי מדינת ישראל. ניטרלנו והשמדנו למעלה מ-60% ממשגרי הטילים הבליסטיים.
And now we're being joined again live by Daniela Bloom, a political commentator from Los Angeles, California. Ma'am, I'd like to follow up on what you mentioned earlier as well, the people of Iran and their interests. What do you believe these interests are? In my mind, it's going to be very difficult for these people to essentially even have a government or parliament building at all at the rate of the attacks that are happening there. What do you believe the interests of Iran will be moving forward, please?
Well, I look to the people. I look to the people of Iran who are celebrating all over the world. They are specifically going to the Israeli embassies, the American embassies, saying, thank you, Trump, thank you, Bibi. And I think if these people have this much hope, so many of them have been sacrificed in these recent rallies, that the people will be triumphant. And again, Trump is not going to go anywhere without a concrete plan. What he was able to effectively do in October in bringing all hostages home to Israel and bringing in a new board of peace to Gaza, these are uncharted territories, but things that people thought were near impossible, Trump was able to do with the help of other countries that, like Qatar and even Turkey, that no one could have even predicted. So there's a lot more to Trump and his strategy, and I think his track record has proven that. So I think all this speculation is really just minutia, and we have to be patient, and we have to see how things unfold. And we are grateful for our ally of Israel, who are indeed on the front lines of this, because America first is a strong Israel because it protects all of America across the pond.
Ma'am, one last question. Do you support Trump's essential forward motion in bypassing what Congress had to say about the war? Do you believe that he had the supreme power, has the supreme power, to essentially launch these attacks and move forward with these surprise attacks that happened last Saturday? Please.
So they just had a vote, and it was voted to 2019 to 2012 that Trump should not have any interruption in his plans. So the vote was passed, and if they really did unanimously want him to stop, they would have voted so. So our government has spoken, and Trump's was given the green light to move forward. And like I said, I brought up earlier, Obama did the very same thing. He did not get congressional support to go into Libya. So we can't have selective outrage. Trump does have executive powers for a reason. You can't just lay out your plans to an enemy. That's not how you win things. So Trump now has the approval of Congress to move forward. You can't stop a horse in midstream. That's not effective. Let his operation pull through. Everyone was screaming that there would be World War III back in June, when there was a very effective 12-day war accomplished, significantly weakening the IRGC and the Iranian regime even then. So all of this plays into a successful outcome, and I'm very encouraged.
Okay, thank you so much for your time, ma'am. Much appreciated. Next up, President Donald Trump has downplayed the rising U.S. gas prices, saying he is not concerned about the increases driven by the expanding Iran conflict. In an exclusive interview, he prioritized the U.S. military operation over higher fuel costs, stating prices will drop once the conflict ends. While gas prices have risen 27 cents in a week, Trump maintains the impact is minor. The White House is hoping the increase is short-lived, but energy advisors have warned failure to tackle the issue could hurt Republicans in the upcoming midterms. The administration is discussing several options to combat the price rise, including oil tanker escorts and a possible gasoline tax holiday, while Trump ruled out a release from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve for now. Listen in.
And yesterday, my administration announced decisive action to help keep down the oil prices, including offering political risk insurance for tankers transiting into the Gulf, as you know, pretty dangerous territory. Further action to reduce pressure on oil is imminent, and the oil seems to have pretty much stabilized. We had it very low, but I had to take this little detour, if it's okay with everyone.
And now joining us live from Washington, D.C. is Matthew Vedum, a journalist and author. Sir, in your experience, how long do markets normally take to price in these deficits in oil supply? Or rather, how long do markets take into price in the prolonged suspicion that oil supplies will reduce in time to come? Please.
Futures markets tend to react very quickly. Almost immediately to expectations of increased or decreased supply and demand for commodities, and so it's not surprising that the prices of oil the price of oil contracts are starting to rise, and that the price of gasoline is rising here in the United States and presumably elsewhere. Since oil is a worldwide commodity. So yeah, markets tend to react very quickly, and there's some things that Trump can do to reassure them, but basically it's out of his hands, because the U.S. and Israel have started this war in Iran that is squeezing international oil supply and is preventing oil from being shipped through the Strait of Hormuz near Iran, and that is making companies nervous about the future supply of oil, hence the increase in price, hence the decision by major insurance companies to drop insurance policies for oil tankers passing through the Strait of Hormuz. This markets don't like this kind of uncertainty, and they respond by increasing prices of commodities.
Please stay with us, sir. We'll be right back with you. Next up, President Donald Trump has announced that Kristi Noem is being replaced as the head of the Department of Homeland Security. In a post on Truth Social, Trump stated that Oklahoma Senator Markwayne Mullin will take over from Noem on March 31st. Noem's removal has sparked mixed reactions, with House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries welcoming the change, but calling for more substantial policy reforms at the agency. Jeffries, who had criticized Noem's handling of DHS, emphasized that the personnel shift won't meet Democrats' demands for changes to immigration policies and the way DHS operates, particularly around the use of body cameras and home invasion procedures by federal agents. Let's listen to what House Democratic leader Hakeem Jeffries had to say.
I don't have any comment right now on what's to come. Let's focus on what's taking place right now. Kristi Noem is gone. Good riddance. She was a disaster, and House Democrats made something very clear several weeks ago. We said either Kristi Noem is fired or she's going to be impeached.
And now joining us again is Matthew Vadum, journalist and author, live from Washington, D.C. Sir, is this a case of Trump essentially firing and hiring whoever he wants, or was this pre-planned with months in the making? You know, was there a preparation as far as this firing goes? What are your thoughts on this, please?
I don't think Trump just woke up this morning and decided he was going to fire Kristi Noem. It's probably been planned for, or at least has been a developing situation in recent days and weeks. Trump, Trump didn't say much about being unhappy with Kristi Noem. He held his cards close to his vest, so to speak. So you have to read between the lines in order to understand what's going on. Immigration enforcement is the centerpiece of President Trump's domestic political platform. At least it was in the 2024 campaign, and he doesn't like that all these distractions have come up, such as the Border Patrol and ICE, killing American citizens. There's an argument about whether the shootings were justified or not in Minneapolis, in Minnesota. This has all caused all sorts of unpleasant political blowback that President Trump would prefer not to have. You notice that he also ended the major enforcement operation in Minnesota a few days ago under political pressure. So, Trump is responding to the political forces, the political tensions and pressures swirling around him, and I think that he got rid of Kristi Noem because he viewed her as a liability, and she wasn't a very effective spokesperson for for ICE and for the Department of Homeland Security that she had. ICE is a division, a child agency of DHS, and he thought that it was ruining his immigration enforcement crackdown that apparently he remains very much committed to, and so he decided to, as they say, cut his losses and move on. And now he's going to nominate Senator Markwayne Mullins of Oklahoma, probably the most solid Republican state in the whole country, as DHS secretary. Mullins has a tough guy image, and that probably appeals to President Trump.
Thank you so much for your time, sir. Much appreciated. Next up, India had held their nerve to beat England by 7 runs in a pulsating ICC Men's T20 World Cup semi-final at Mumbai's Wankhede Stadium, despite a breathtaking 105 runs by England's Jacob Bethel. This victory comes after India's Sanju Samson's 89 runs, which laid the foundation. Indian captain Surya Kumar Yadav has admitted the tensions as England's chase was unfolded. Surya Kumar Yadav has said that he was very nervous. Heart rate would have been 160 to 175 as the moment India entered. It was already 80% full. Hope the team gave the crowd a good game. Yadav has added that going for the title in India, there will be pressure, but the players and support staff will be excited. That's all we have time for. Keep watching NewsX World for more news updates from around the world.